All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am no one. And in today's video, we are going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the tempering process. You see, last week I was able to temper a weapon, and I wanted to temper your guys' expectations on what the system is and what it's about. And if you think that joke is terrible, there are a lot more in this video. So we're going to talk about the tempering system. I'm going to go through all the information that you need to know for what it is, what it entails, and what it's about. And then I'm probably going to yap a little bit at the end as to my overall first impressions on how this system will be used, what it's beneficial for, and all of that. So let's just dive into it. First things first, if you're watching in the background, I have a mostly ungeared and naked character deconstructing gear. And the first thing you need to do in order to temper a weapon, you need to deconstruct weapons of that level. So hypothetically, let's say you have an epic bow. In order to temper your bow and make it stronger, you need to deconstruct weapons of that level. And in order to deconstruct weapons of that level, you need a deconstruction kit of that level. And so the resources for a deconstruction kit are Kolkathar, which is copper refined. You need turpentine, which is Western larchwood refined. And you need granite grinding stone, which is granite refined. And all of these are lower level materials that anybody can refine into these things because it is a basic introductory refining process. And so you need to have the proper level of all these resources in order to make the proper kit. So if you're doing a legendary deconstructing legendary weapons, you need legendary copper, Western larch, and granite in order to make your legendary deconstruction kit, as an example. And so that's the first thing that you're going to do. And now in the background, you're seeing me buy a bunch of swords. I wanted to deconstruct them. I kind of wanted to see what the RNG was, because when you deconstruct these, you're going to get a few different things. You're going to get the materials needed to make these weapons. And so because I'm deconstructing copper swords, you're seeing I'm getting copper fragments. You're seeing I'm getting basalt weapon molds. And I'm also getting two other things. I'm getting residium. I'm getting sifts, and then I'm getting residium in either an accessory, a weapon, or apparel. Now, at the time of testing this was last week, there was a bug to where the weapons were giving the accessory. And so you're seeing I'm deconstructing this stuff, and the residium I'm getting is the accessory amount. And I didn't realize that. That's why I'm constantly hovering over this in the background. It was a bug. It has since been fixed, but you're going to get these things. And when you get the residium and the sifts, you can then take that over to the arcane engineer, and you can turn that into your tempering kit, which you're seeing in the background. And so it calls for different things. It calls either for the weapon sift if you want to do a weapon, apparel, accessory, whatever, depending on what you're trying to make. And so then you're going to make this specific tempering kit at the level that you're trying to make. And after that, you are going to go out and temper an item. Now, what is tempering? I talked about it in last week's video. Tempering allows you to improve your weapon along the scale. If you go and you look on the Ashes Codex, you will see that there are varying levels of a weapon for rare, heroic, epic, and legendary. Not every legendary weapon has the same amount of physical power. Not every weapon has the same amount of penetration or whatever stats that it provides, because it varies on how far up the scale you are. And so what tempering does is it moves you along that process. You could go out and you could farm a weapon, and you could have a low-level rare weapon, and you can then use this process in order to improve that weapon and make it stronger, make it a higher-level rare weapon. And so when you look at this, this is how you go about doing these things. When you go to temper your item, you're going to need your tempering kit, and you're going to need resources made that were required in order to improve it. And so in the background, you're seeing me basically throw in a few pieces that I can't upgrade because I want to show what the tempering process is and how much it upgrades. But you see on the bottom, it calls for different resources. And so these are resources needed to make the item to begin with. And so if you want to temper an uncommon piece, you need uncommon steel, you need uncommon braidwood paper, or whatever the resource requires on the bottom, and that amount of gold in order to temper it and move it up the scale. And so naturally, the higher level tempering is going to cost a lot more. It's going to cost more in resources. It's going to cost more in gold to do. You're going to see later on, I put on a level 10 legendary sword, and it costs like 4 gold in order to temper it up the scale a little bit. And so lower level pieces don't require as much to temper. And so just It all makes sense, but I just wanted to explain it so you guys kind of have an idea here. And so that's what you need in order to temper your different pieces. It all depends on what pieces they are. But yeah, it's going to be the introductory pieces of whatever it took to make that weapon in order to temper it and move it farther up the scale. Now, eventually, they will also have Ascension. Ascension is a system that is supposed to be out during phase 2. It's not out yet. Ascension, I'm assuming, is going to move your weapon from uncommon. So if you level ascend a piece, an uncommon piece to the highest end, you should be able to ascend it then from uncommon to rare. And so you will go from a high end uncommon to a low end rare, and then you can temper that weapon up the scale again. And so that's how all the systems are going to work. Enchanting levels up your weapon, tempering moves you along the scale, Ascension, just like in Dragon Ball Z, allows you to ascend to a higher form of rarity in this regard. And so that's how the system works. Obviously, in the background, you guys can just watch me kind of go through things and try and figure it out. But what does this mean for you? What does this mean for your build? What does this mean for your character? What I will say, and I wanted to provide a very real example for you guys in this video, during the middle of phase 2, we got wind that the journeyman bows were going to be online soon. It was one of the first journeyman weapons online in Vyra, and we wanted to get everybody in the guild higher level weapons, because obviously the more powerful you are, the better you're going to complete content. And so me and a few people started going out and collecting braidwood. We had other people going out to collect other things. It was a group effort to collect resources to get everybody in the guild weapons. And obviously, in an ideal world, we want everybody to have legendary weapons, but legendary weapons for 50 people initially isn't feasible. There's just not that many trees out there. So in the last couple of months of farming braidwood, I've probably seen 4 to 5 legendary trees. I've seen 10 to 15-ish epic trees, and I've seen 20 plus, 30 plus heroic trees, which makes sense. Like, you're going to see more as the quality of the tree goes down, because that's how rarity works, of course. But where we were at is we were able to get everybody heroic level bows. And so we reached that accomplishment. Everybody has these weapons, and now we want to upgrade everybody to epic, because that's the next point on the scale. And that gave us a little bit of a situation, because now we're going out and collecting trees, and obviously we're saving the epics and we're saving the legendaries to give people those weapons and upgrade them to a higher amount. But we're still collecting heroic. Heroic is still valuable, it's still worth something, but it's not worth anything to us before the tempering process. So what we were doing at that point is, once we got everybody heroic level bows, we didn't have a need to make heroic caravans or trees or anything else. So we were then selling it on the market in order to improve our weapons and improve our gear. But now, with the tempering process, it gives us an option, and we may want to temper a heroic weapon. I'm not saying that this is 100% a thing that you do. I'm just stating that this is now an option, because now we're sitting on all this heroic braidwood, and yes, we can sell it, or we could make people's weapons better on the heroic scale, and we could move them up that level. And maybe they've had this weapon for a little while. Maybe they spent some gold on enchanting it and tempering it up the scale. And this is, I want to be clear, I don't know what's going to happen here, but it may be better for some people with weapons to temper their heroic up to the high end heroic and then ascend it than it is to go out and get all the resources just to make an epic. Because it's possible that when you ascend a weapon, you keep the enchantments that you have. I don't know if this is the case or not. I'm just trying to put a hypothetical example out there, right? You go out and you get a heroic bow, you've had it for a while, RNG has been a real pain in the ass for you to get epic or legendary. You have this heroic, you wanted to improve it, so you enchanted it to like +9. Well, what happens when you temper it and then you ascend it? Do you lose those enchantments, or do you keep those enchantments? Because if you keep them, there will be scenarios for some people where, you spend 30, 40, 50, 100 plus gold, depending on RNG, to enchant it. It may be cheaper for you to ascend an item, to temper and ascend an item, than it is to go out and collect the legendary materials, make a whole new bow, and then enchant it all over again. And so you may want to keep that bow if you get to keep those enchantments. And so it's an interesting point of view, is all I'm trying to say. It's a system, obviously on the high end. If you have a legendary weapon, this is how you're going to make your legendary weapon better. It's going to take a lot of resources. It's going to take a lot of time. And there was a big discussion. I remember this, before Alpha 2 even came out, where we talked to other content creators. I vividly remember this, talking to Vladis about this. But Vladis was talking about how he wanted his legendary weapons to feel like legendary weapons. And if you look at what they're doing currently, it's going to be a lot harder to go out and get legendary materials due to the static node rarity going away. And also, a high-end legendary weapon is going to take a lot more resources in order to get to that point. And so when you're looking at these things, a high-end legendary weapon is going to feel like a high-end legendary weapon. And so this feel that people want, it is going to be an accomplishment. A low-end one, it's going to be quite a bit easier to collect. It's going to be quite a bit easier to do. But in order to get to that high end, you're going to have to spend a lot of resources and a lot of gold to continue to do so. And so it's an interesting system. I think when you look at it, it's a lot more of a catch-up system than it is for people to get ahead. Now, will people with legendary gear get ahead by ascending their items? Absolutely. By tempering their items? 100%. You know, if you have a lot of gold in the game and you have the ability to acquire materials, yes, you are going to be able to temper your weapons. But due to how rarity currently works, it's going to be a lot easier to temper a heroic or an epic more than a legendary. And because of that, you're going to see lower level weapons potentially catch up depending on what the ascending system is. And so obviously I'm making some assumptions here. I'm making some assumptions as to what ascension is. If ascension allows you to keep the enchantments, it means that your lower level weapons could potentially be your best route in order to move up a higher scale. And it's a different route in order to improve your weapon. And so overall, and obviously it's not just weapons, it's accessories, it's everything. And so this is a completely different system that makes resources more valuable to continue to move things up the scale. If you're sitting on a bunch of stuff in your inventory, it allows you to delete things. If you look at, you know, if you're out there on the market, I remember a few months ago, the entire market was just saturated with level 20 uncommon and rare pieces. And because it was saturated, the value and price of them were going down. And so people are out grinding POIs, they're collecting stuff, they're putting it on the trader. There will be times where, you know, there might be a bunch of uncommon stuff out there and you may be able to just go out and buy a bunch of gear, deconstruct it, get the materials for it, and then upgrade your personal piece and get it to rare. As an example, it depends on the scale, the stage of where we're at in the game, of course, on what quality rarity that you're trying to get. But there will be points where saturation will happen. There will be points where uncommon is just ridiculously common in the market. There will be points where rare is ridiculously common in the market, and it'll continue to move up the scale. And this allows people to go in there, identify values, clear out that stuff in order to make their own stuff better at a potentially cheaper option. Now, is it for everybody? Probably not, but it's going to be for some people, and it's going to be a nice option for some people. So I'm gonna end this video here. Obviously, this is first impressions. I'm entitled to change my opinion later on. If you guys have any questions or comments, please provide in the comment section below, and I will do my best to answer it though. As always, guys, thank you for watching. Have a nice day.